Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Federica.
Hi. Thank you so much, first of all, honestly, for agreeing to take part of this. Um,
Okay.
this question, obviously, is what can we expect to see from the Women in Jazz show?
Oh, what can you expect to see? Well, you can hear a lot of really good music, basically, all written by female jazz composers. Um, and yeah, you'll also see pictures of them. It's the sort of there's a slideshow, so you get to have and you'll also hear some of them talking as well. Have some sound recordings of them being interviewed. So yeah,
That's
that's what
great.
it's like. It's not a theatre show. It's a
Really,
gig, but
yeah,
with a gig with visuals.
really interesting. So I wanted to know, like, where the idea for the show came from. Like, was it like there was an event that inspired you, or like was it like a part of a long thought, like creative process, let's say?
Yeah, I suppose it is part of a long process because I used to sing a lot of jazz 20 odd years ago. I had a band. I'd studied jazz and but then my career, I sort of started getting work doing other lots of sorts of music, mainly new music, newly composed music, and then through that I got into working in theatre, and then the last few years, before the pandemic, I was sort of started making my own work again, and kind of making gig theatre pieces. So sort of trying to combine music and sound and words and sound audio recordings and things. And also I wanted to get back into singing jazz because I felt like now was the time. And being older, I could bring something else to something new to the music. And then of course during the pandemic, lots of time on my hands.
Of time, yeah.
It's like, what do we do? Oh, I know. Well, I'll just learn some new tunes. And I had just before the pandemic, I'd done a gig with a woman I'd just met, a piano player called Vic, who plays on the gig, and she is a big fan of a piano player called Marion McPartland, and she'd done a whole album a few years ago of Marion McPartland's work, and so she introduced me to her, and I'd heard of Marion McPartland, I didn't really know anything about her, and I don't know if you know, there's a very famous jazz photograph of all these jazz musicians that was taken in 1957, called Great Day in Harlem, and it's a fantastic pictures by Art Kane, and he's got I don't know, it looks like about 50 or 60 jazz musicians on the sidewalk on a street in New York, and there's three women. There's a whole array of men. There's three women, and one of them is Marion McPartland, she's the only white woman, and she originally was from South London, so she had an interesting history. And then the other woman was Mary Lou Williams, was absolutely phenomenal person who everybody should know about. But yeah, so that's where it all came from, really, because once I started research, I started reading some books, and but I'm a big that's the other thing about Marion McPartland. Oh my goodness me, not only was she an amazing piano player, she also was a journalist, and she wrote lots of articles and about jazz, and then she got into presenting a program for NPR called Piano Jazz, and she did it in the end for 30 years. Every week she would interview somebody new, and it started off with mainly just piano players, and she was 93 by the time she did her last program, and it's phenomenal, and it's all online. It's an incredible resource. Some of those stories about them and some of these women's lives, it just was a no-brainer, really. It's such a great thing. It's just so many people, so many women who worked so hard and were well known in their day. They weren't. It wasn't like they were, not famous. I mean, Mary Lou Williams was incredibly famous, but then they just kind of get lost to the mists of time.
Like, what impact do you want to kind of like leave on the audience who come and hear and see the show?
I want them to go home and find out do some research for themselves, you know, go home and Google all the women that I talk about and find out, you know, which of their music that they like, because there's about 8 women I've got that I do music of, and that we've got songs from, and they span sort of like 1930s up to 2000, and so, you know, it's different styles. So yeah, no, I would like people to feel inspired and maybe also slightly cheated by, I should finish that sentence, cheated by historians. They should just be they should just not trust what they're told, you know. It's like history is always, who tells history, right? It's always in the hands of the victor, isn't it, you know? So it's the same about women's history, you know. Who wrote the history of jazz? You know, it's usually by the blokes, you know, and yeah, you know, because the women were in the minority, but they were there.
It's really great, to be honest. Like, even when you were talking about the piano, like, show, it's like made me want to, like, oh, you know, I'll have a look at it after this ends. Like,
brilliant.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, that is the amazing thing about the internet, isn't it? God, and another resource I found was this thing called the Jazz Oral History Project, done by the John Rutgers Institute in America, and it was they were interviews with jazz musicians that took place sort of through the 70s and 80s. And again, it's all online. So, of course, all those people are long gone, you know, they're long departed, but they're reminiscing about times that, you know, that 100 years ago, or 80, 90, you know, it's really fascinating. And I just love hearing them. I love hearing them talking. I love the way they express themselves and their accents, and you know, they're just the whole bit is brilliant.
Yeah, it's so, really great. Yeah, no, honestly, that sounds like really, really amazing. And speaking of like the fact that we have the internet, like, and everything is like kind of like easy for us to access, do you think that like jazz is kind of being like rediscovered by new generation, like for example my generation? So do you think?
Yeah, totally, I do. And I don't think just jazz. I mean, I think now, you know, younger people, everybody has access to so many kinds of different music, you know. I mean, I see it with my own children, you know, that the stuff they listen to, but also the stuff they find, you know, it's brilliant. It's fantastic, because I suppose how, in the past, actually somebody was saying this to me recently about how they regretted that they were a young person. I think they were like in their 20s or 30s, and they regretted that fate, that they didn't get that experience where you would wait for a record to come out, and then you'd go to the record shop, and then you'd buy it, and you'd come home really excited, and you'd put it on. And I just thought that was hilarious that they missed that, you know, because oftentimes you did that and it was disappointing. Or, you know, that you maybe saved up your money to buy this record or CD, and it was like, oh, it wasn't as good as you thought it was going to be.
At least now,
were you ever going to?
You
know, but now, exactly. Spotify, YouTube, you just play a bit of it and you think, do I like that? You know, I mean, in some ways, it makes us all much more consumers, doesn't it? You know, we consume music in a different way. But then I love the fact that so many artists release their work on vinyl as well, because people, you know, when you do find something you love, you know, you want to find out everything about it, don't you? You want to read the liner notes and just, oh my God, you just want to own this physical thing. It is interesting that. Yeah, but it's made so much more available, made so many more things so much more available to people.
Yeah, and like it's really nice to like think that it's all about like the power of music in general. Like music does this to people. And speaking of music, like of course, you know, the music industry, we all know sometimes it's like kind of like male driven and a bit, you know, with male around. So like you, of course, working as a woman in the industry, in the music industry, have you ever found like, I don't know, any difficulties or like disadvantages working as a woman in the industry compared to like a male in the industry?
Well, yeah, probably. I mean, it's very difficult to put your finger on specific. Yeah, I mean, there are specific things that have happened in my career that you kind of think, God, that would never happen to a man. That just wouldn't never happen to a man. Or, but it's sort of so much part and parcel of who you are, really. And it's just the same. It's the same thing about, you know, you just. I think it's probably not just music. It's also any freelance sort of occupation that you're trying to pursue with. You just want to work, you know, you want to meet people, you want to work, you want to make contacts, and then it's not till afterwards that you kind of think, maybe that wasn't the best job, or maybe that wasn't the best person to work with, or maybe, yeah, you know, yeah. So it's, yes. But I think yeah, it's you know, we live in a patriarchy, so you know, and they're in control, but they don't realize it. Most of them don't realize how much of an advantage they have, because they've never not had it. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Just have to work our way up until someone noticed, you know. So yeah, thank you for this conversation and for, you know, this talk and agreeing to talk with us, and for taking part of the Fringe, a preview that we're going to have in Newsweek. So yeah, thank you so much for this, for, you know, your time, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. So yeah,
great, thank you. You're very welcome. Nice to meet you, Federica.